Jack Kingston, former congressman from Savannah, ran for U.S. Senate, got beat in the runoff by David Perdue back in the day, longtime CNN contributor. Both Jack and I were on CNN long time. We make up part of the growing fraternity of former CNN contributors, and Jack's one of them, and he's from Georgia, and he's with us now. Jack Kingston, it's great to have you on, Jack.
John, it is great to be with you on. And yes, we were considered deplorables when we were on CNN. And, it wasn't enough that the decks were always stacked 4 versus 1. They still wanted to get rid of us. But we stood up for truth and never backed down. And I think our friendship grew as a result of it. And I'm here to say that you really are the Godzilla and the oracle of the deplorables. And I'm glad to be with you.
Well, thanks, Jack. And, I have this thing with Trump supporters on CNN. They only get rid of the good ones, right? They want the ones that they can roll over, basically, and make look bad, but they couldn't do that to us. And so that's why there is a fraternity for us, no question. Jack, I spent the week in Georgia to celebrate Brian Kemp's opening. On Friday, there's a headline, right, in the Atlanta Journal. I was kind of waiting for it. And, of course, the headline was shame the governor, shame everybody that wants to actually get a job and go out, and it says, cases set record high, Georgia disaster. Of course, cases don't mean anything because now we're finding out probably 60 million Americans would have been tested positive if everybody had a test. I haven't been there in several days. When I was there, I heard 3 things from businesses. A, they wanted to open, but they were afraid of the demand. The demand side might not be there. Secondly, people were getting unemployment, didn't want to come in. And thirdly, they were afraid to get sued. If somebody got sick, there was no litigation protection. And a couple business owners said, look, I don't have any more money, so if I get sued, I can't defend myself. How is that playing out now there?
It's going to be tough for everybody because the trial lawyers are circling around like sharks at a shipwreck. They want there to be lawsuits, and they're going to make a lot of money when there are. But I think that most people have determined that we have got to get back to work. I talked to somebody yesterday who had a family member who killed himself because of the stress of finances right now. There is a real downside to staying at home, and the people in Washington and the people in New York City who have the luxury of taking a laptop home and continuing to work, they don't understand that if you are in a business which requires you to be on the premises, either manufacturing something or serving something, you have to be there, and the money is going to run out in Washington. It's deficit spending anyhow, so I think we have got to get back to work. John, I heard a statistic this morning. It was from the Hoover Institute, Victor Hansen, probably a friend of yours. But he said,
yes,
just remember, 55% of the deaths have come from New York, New Jersey, and Massachusetts. It's 11% of the total population. But in contrast, Florida, California, and Texas, 30% of the population have only had 5,500 deaths. And he said, so something's going on, and it goes beyond, the lockdown really has paid off. There's something else out there, and we don't know what we don't know right now. And, politics shouldn't be part of this debate. It should be, let's be objective. But I think you can reopen successfully. We're obviously going to be very careful, but we don't know how this disease really is transmitted.
Well, yeah, those are Victor Hansen came out with that yesterday. It sat right in front of everybody. But, these are the things, Jack, because of politics that nobody really wants to talk about. But, as I've been saying all week, 3 studies came out now that shows that probably 17% of everybody has had COVID-19, which would bring the total amount in America to 65 million people. You look at the number dead, and if you take out those that are elderly and those that died in nursing homes, underlying health conditions, Jack, it's it's the same as the flu. So it's mind-boggling to people that we would still stay at home and shut down entire production. People say, well, shut down businesses. We're not producing anything. The entire country is shut down. And so we get all these millions of people unemployed. And they think, like our governor in Virginia said he was going to open on the 8th, phase 1. Then the 8th gets near, he says, no, it's going to be on the 15th. I mean, he thinks it's like hitting on a switch, right? People have to plan, get inventory, get workers. So they plan for it, and then he drops a bomb and says, oh, I'm going to delay it a week again. No idea the impact that has, right?
Right, and if you're a restaurant, you think about the CDC actually hasn't issued guidelines yet on opening a restaurant. So do you keep your salad bar out? Do you have your drink machine? What about vending machines? Those guidelines have not been issued yet. There were some guidelines that were draft issues that the Washington Post leaked, but those are not the official CDC guidelines. So, and then if you have a chain, if you're operating in Georgia, Mississippi, and Alabama, each state and each municipality has its own guidelines that you've got to go by. So reopening is absolutely not flipping a switch, and people like Ralph North in Virginia don't realize that. One more statistic that I wanted to throw out there, John, from your friend Ben Shapiro. He quoted the CDC number that said, as of April, of people under 45, there have been 1,036 deaths, and people under 25, there have only been 51 deaths. So there is absolutely no question about the effect of the demographics on the population. And I think as we reopen, we've got to look at the statistics about who's the most vulnerable. But I think that we've got this cookie cutter, one size fits all, and it's not really truth in reality. So to me, as we reopen, we've got to look at the statistics about who's most vulnerable and who should show up to work.
Jack, give me those numbers again from Shapiro. 1,000, what was it, 46?
Okay, the first stat was as of April, 37,308 Americans have died. So that was as of April CDC number. And under 45, 1,036, and under 25, only 51. Those are startling numbers.
It's just, but see, Jack, look, the fake news and the Democrats and Fauci, who's a deep stater, they need to fire him. The guy's so compromised. They're not going to give you these stats, right? Because, Jack, they don't want the country to reopen because they want the swing states to stay shut down. They want to shutter businesses. They want people bankrupt. They want to crash the economy. So come November, people are not going to vote for the incumbent. They elect Biden in these swing states. I mean, otherwise you would simply give this information out. You would say, wow, under 45, a total of, as of the end of April, a total of 1,087 people have died out of 300 million. I mean, that's under the flu. So why is the entire country shut down and everybody running around in fear and masks? And of course, the federal employees, this is great for them, Jack. They stay home. They do Zoom in their pajamas. 1st and the 15th, money gets wired into their account. They don't have to commute, no gas. It's great. For the rest of us, it's hardship. It's unbelievable. Those numbers are stunning to me, Jack. Stunning. And why isn't that on the front page of the New York Times or the Atlanta Constitution Journal or the other fake news? Why?
Well, I really do think there is a liberal power grab on one hand, but it is ultimately about power in November and defeating Trump. You could not even have an intelligent conversation about hydroxychloroquine because Trump said it seemed to be working in some cases, so automatically the left is against it. You couldn't even have an intelligent conversation about it. That's the worst part. And that was pointed out by a Rolling Stone reporter, by the way, a left-winger, who said, there's just too much noise. Anything Trump's for, the Democrats, the left, are automatically against. And I do think, sadly, some of the governors in these swing states are using coronavirus to further disrupt the economy so that they would get a better result in November. It's sad. I mean, it's very disturbing to think about.
It's sick. For our listeners that don't know that much about Jack Kingston, Jack served in Congress for over a decade. How long were you there, Jack? You were there a real long time, right?
I'm embarrassed to say because people say, yeah, he was part of the problem. 22 years. And
you're there 22 years.
Now I'm working with one of the great native sons, Trent Lott of Mississippi.
Oh, he's a great guy, yep.
Yes,
yep.
And we have a lot of fun together. And I'll tell you one thing, Trent loves Mississippi and spends every minute that he can there. He still has to come to Washington on occasion, but he still wants to go home. That's where his heart is. And my assistant is from Gulfport, Reed Bourgeois, which is a good Cajun name for Mississippi, a cousin of Congressman Steve Palazzo. A lot of great connections.
Oh, man, you got it all. I should have called you up earlier. You could have had some of them come on. I tried to get Palazzo on. I couldn't. He was thinking about it, but we couldn't make the time work. He had some things going on. But I got to get to politics in Georgia. I'm going to go with the easy races and then get to the hard one. Can I do that? So,
absolutely.
Republican primaries all over the place. Let's start with two of the easier ones. The Athens seat, the one that Doug Collins gave up to run for U.S. Senate. I had Paul Brown on my show live a couple of times. He's telling me that he's in good shape there. That primary in a couple of weeks. Is he going back to Congress? What do you think?
Paul tells me he is ahead in the polls. There's Kevin Tanner and John Wilkinson.
Right.
They're very popular state representatives. One has the support of Nathan Deal, and the other one has a great reputation with the agriculture community. Paul tells me that is the most conservative, the second most conservative district in the entire country, and that's why he's a fit for it. So I think it's going to be a money. I think Paul's underfunded, but he told me Club for Growth it's going to support him. I don't know if that means they're going to come in with big cash or not, but it's a foot race. It's the same way in the 14th district where Tom Graves is retiring. It's a Republican seat. It's going to stay Republican. You got a Matt Lawridge, a young guy who is hard-charging conservative. You have 3 or 4 conservatives in there that are going to be fighting that out. There will definitely be a runoff in both of these races.
And then let's get to another person I had on my show, old friend of John Fredericks. I'm very loyal to my friends, Jack. As you know, I had Renee Unterman came live, state senator there. She's running in the 7th, the seat of the retiring, can never think of his name, the guy that took over.
Rob Woodall.
Rob Woodall, his former chief of staff. Renee tells me she's in a tough race.
She is. She has the monetary advantage, but there is a doctor in there, Dr. Rich McCormick, who actually literally was the poster child for the Marine Corps recruiting. Back when he was active in the Marines, he was the guy on the Marine posters. But I think between Renee and McCormick, the Republican primary is going to go with one of them or the other. The situation, though, is that district is now becoming a swing seat. And for years, it was John Linder's seat, and Rob Woodall was his chief of staff, and he took over and has done a great job. But you got to have kind of a unique personality, because on one part of the district, it's very, very conservative, and on the other part, it's become moderate. So I don't think anybody really knows how the ball's going to bounce in that. But Renee right now has the monetary advantage, but we'll just see.
That's a tough one to call. I think Paul Brown gets in the runoff. I don't know about the Graves seat. 3 good conservatives, I have no idea, but I think Dr. Brown gets in the runoff, and if he gets in the runoff, he wins. So I think I'm picking him to win in that one. I think Renee gets in the runoff if there is one. I mean, she could get 50%, but I don't think so. McCormick's got a lot of money as well, and he's run a pretty good campaign, so we'll see what happens there. Okay, let's get to the big one, the big enchilada, as they say. This is a tough one, right? Doug Collins, a friend of ours, running against incumbent, now appointed Kelly Loeffler, and Collins is ahead in some polls, some are tied. That's going to go to a runoff, no question. It could be the runoff with was 2, could be the runoff with a Democrat. And that thing has turned into a complete mess. What do you think, Jack? It's a hornet's nest. Murder hornet.
I think it's going to be Loeffler or Collins, though. It's what we're not used to them in Georgia, but it's a jungle primary where the top 2 vote getters, assuming they're all under 50%, the 2 top vote getters in November will go into a January runoff, and those are really difficult because you got to get the vote out. I think both Collins and Loeffler will be able to get their votes out. So I think we're going to be okay, but the Democrat is going to be extremely well funded, and it's just like the Democrat running against Lindsey Thomas, lots of out-of-state money and lots of excitement. The Democrats always are great on excitement and great on funding their team, but it's going to be a slugfest down to the wire. And you also you haven't mentioned another race with Karen Handel challenging Lucy McBath to get that seat back into the Republican column, and they both are well funded. Going to have a lot of out-of-state money playing on the Democrat side. I think Karen Handel's got a good ground game, but it's going to go down to the wire.
The problem with Karen is people don't like her. She never should have gotten beat by McBath. She almost got beat by Ossoff. It's tough when you keep running. It's like she's becoming like the Harold Stassen of Atlanta politics. I mean, she's in every cycle she's running for something, and she's just not a very likable person. So, look, she's going to have no problem being the nominee. I met the people running against her. They don't have a chance. She is going to be the nominee, but I don't know. I don't like that race because I just don't think she's a likable person, and you still have, and the problem is the person she's running against is very likable, that McBath, but hopefully, Karen can sneak by and win that. So are you saying in the Senate race that the two Republicans could be in the runoff without the Dem?
Yes, it's possible.
Wow.
I think it's not likely, but I think it is possible. I just think the Republicans are going to, want to make sure that we keep that seat. And it depends if the Democrat comes in there with a base vote that he can earn his way. Narrow possibility, but I think that we'll have the runoff. But we're going to keep the seat. And whether it's Collins or whether it's Lofter, she's had some missteps. And Collins, one of the funny things about politics that you and I have seen, particularly the Republican Party, we love outsiders, we love newcomers, but they often make mistakes. Doug Collins was a state representative. He's been on the ballot many times, as we know from the impeachment trials. He's been in many hot circumstances of debate. He can handle the press, he can handle the pressure, and he's not going to crack under it. So he does have a great experience advantage on that. And he's coming from a very, very strong Republican district. So, his base is going to show up, and they are going to vote for him.
Well, so my picks, I'm going to go ahead and predict the winners, Jack. I'm not going to make you do that because of the position you're in, but I'm going to go ahead and make predictions. Final tallies. Here's the people going. I think Paul Brown wins. I think Karen Handel is still, despite some of the issues she has, I think she goes back to Congress. I think Doug Collins is the U.S. Senator from Georgia. Kelly, nice lady, a lot of money. I think the stock thing hurt her. Even though she can say that, well, it was only 1%, she didn't know. I mean, people just have no tolerance for that, Jack. And Doug Collins, never to be underestimated, ever, never. So I like Collins to win that. Perdue, I like him to win. I just, you know what, Renee Unterman, there is something about her. People vote for her, and she's out there campaigning in a pickup truck with a Trump hat and a shotgun. I mean, it's like, I saw her the other day. She drives up. She got a pickup truck, a Trump hat, and a shotgun, and I'm like, okay, maybe the moderates are not going to vote for you, but that part of your district that's concerned, they're going to vote for Renee Unterman, and I'd love to get her to Congress because she's fun. Also, I'm biased. I want my friends there, Jack, because as I say all the time, misery loves company. So the more of my friends I can get up there that I could go visit them, the better, as miserable a place as it is. Now, if Jack Kingston was running, I'd be for him, but he's not. Jack's
well, I tell you what, we got to get it is going to be one of the most important election that we've had. We say it every year, but it is absolutely true. Donald Trump is a disruptor. Washington needed a disruptor. Mm-hmm. That's why all of the elite crowd is against him, and that's why we got to vote for him and all the Republicans all the way down the line.
All right, Jack, thank you, and I'll be back in Georgia. When is it? Whenever the primary is. I'm coming back there because there's so many fun things happen. June 23rd, I think. John Fredericks Radio Network. Love when I have Jack Kingston on, my good friend from Georgia.